A lot of semiconductor news to cover today. First, we're going to take a quick look at ASML and Lam Research. They both reported earnings today. One is up after earnings, the other one is unfortunately down. So let's try to understand what's happening and if they can give us any insight for the semiconductor industry. I also want to take a quick look at AMD and Intel. Both of these companies have had some recent news. AMD has had some new products that I'm super excited to announce or talk about. So if this is your first time here, make sure to hit the thumbs up. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Check out the pinned comment for free Discord, free newsletter, and a lot of great investing links. So let's get started. All right, so let's start off with ASML. They reported earnings when the market opened today, and the stock price ended up 2.7% up on the day. After hours, it is up about 0.3%. So for those not familiar with ASML, this is a company that creates machines or equipments for the semiconductor manufacturing process. So we can see ASML from its 52-week high has definitely seen quite a correction, is down over 28%. Right, so if we take a closer look at Lam Research, we can see that their CEOs made some strong statements about the semiconductor industry. First, they mentioned our first quarter net sales came in at 3.5 billion euros, which is at the high end of our guidance. Their first quarter net bookings came in at 7 billion euros as well. And this is overall reflecting the continued high demand for advanced and mature nodes. They continue to see that demand for our systems is higher than our current production capacity. So we can see at the end of the day, it's still great news for semiconductor manufacturing equipment companies, at least to say the least, because they can't keep up with demand. And I think that's great news. They do mention in light of demands and their plans to increase capacity, they expect to revisit their scenario for 2025 and growth opportunities beyond. So for those not familiar with ASML in their most recent investors relations, they kind of increased their kind of long-term growth because of demand. And now they're saying, hey, because of our demand that we're seeing now, we might have to revisit that growth strategy even more. And who knows, maybe it seems towards that maybe they're going to be even upping it even more, but they're going to communicate more about that in the second half of the year. They also do mention for the full year, they continue to expect revenue growth of around 20%. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video and keep listening for this great offer we have for the community. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investments. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you a discount for one of my favorite services The Fool offers, The Motley Fool Stock Advisor. Go to fool.com/Jose to sign up and get access to a ton of expert stock picks. Every month you'll get 2 new picks that are aimed at growing your wealth and to help you realize your financial goals. Stock Advisor has been a market-beating service. So what are you waiting for? Thanks again for The Motley Fool. Now on to today's points. Now if we take a closer look at Lam Research, this is another company that provides equipment for semiconductors. Unfortunately, this one reported earnings after the market closed today on 420. And we can see after hours, the stock is actually down 1.5%. And this is crazy, right? Because since they're both dealing in the equipment of semiconductors, you might be like, hey, if ASML did well, why wouldn't this one also do well? So let's take a closer look at what Lam's management has to say. So they mentioned in an extraordinarily difficult supply chain environment. So right off the bat, we're seeing that they are being hit with the overall supply chains logistics, and obviously it's being affected in a negative way. Regardless, the results that they met were within the ranges that they previously given. Unfortunately, they were not meeting analyst expectations. I do believe that's probably one of the reasons the stock price is down. They do mention that they are focusing on resolving the supply issues to support strong customer demand, and they remain confident in the secular drivers of the wafer fabrication equipment. So right off the bat, it does seem like Lam Research is having some form of internal struggles with supply management, but at the end of the day, they do mention that the overall semiconductor market still has strong customer demands, at least when it comes to wafer fabrication equipment, which is what ASML was kind of mentioning as well. So I do believe this bodes really well for the semiconductor industry. Even though we might see a slowdown in secular consumer tech, I'm starting to believe that those other markets are really going to at least be a nice amount of offset, or at least hold it off for some time until we start to kind of get a better trend of what's happening in the market. All right, so now that we looked at earnings, I want to take a closer look at AMD and Intel. They both had some recent news, one a little bit bigger than the other, but let's start off with Intel. Intel right now ended the day 0.38% higher for the day, and after hours is pretty much flat. I do want to mention Intel just recently promoted Raja M. Koduri to Executive Vice President. And for those not familiar with Raja, this is one that's dealing a lot with the kind of graphics department here in Intel. And I do believe for him to be getting some form of promotion, it seems like maybe the graphics market that Intel is entering is doing really well. Unfortunately, the consumer side, we're not seeing the great results. We've seen their laptops kind of being delayed with their ARC graphics, and we've kind of seen reports that their discrete graphics for desktops are also seeing delays. But again, this is more of supply chain issues. It doesn't mean that, well, from what we can see, that it's because of Intel's product. It's more of just like a supply chain issue. And for those that are not familiar with Raja, he was actually working for AMD before, and he was the senior vice president and chief architect of Radeon Technologies at AMD. He ended up moving to Intel in 2017. So again, this is not any major news, but it just shows how talent shifts around in some of these bigger players and how talent poaching is very, very important for this industry. I'm pretty sure Raja came with a lot of great insight and a lot of great knowledge in the graphics market that is helping Intel kind of accelerate their market into the graphics department. So very interesting there. If we take a closer look at AMD, AMD is down 3% on the day. After hours, the stock is up about 0.37, and AMD had some more impressive news compared to Intel. This one actually, I want to say, affects the long-term thesis for the company. So first, we're going to start off that AMD introduced numerous laptops with their 6000 Ryzen. For those not familiar with the 6000 Ryzen, this is the one that goes on laptops. So it's the laptop processor, and they're going to start releasing soon. So new solutions for the laptop market here from AMD. Some other news: on April 20th, AMD EPYC processor is expanding with Oracle Cloud. For those not familiar with Oracle, this is another big player in the kind of clouding provider companies, and they are expanding their AMD EPYC processor footprint. We can see, and we talked about it a lot before, AMD's third generation AMD processor, which is Milan, has done really well to be adopted by all the big players in the clouding market, and now those kind of partnerships continue to expand. So I'm really excited to see what earnings are going to do, especially here for the data center for AMD. The second thing I want to show is just another way that AMD products are being used. AMD EPYC processors are being used by Mercedes-AMG to kind of help with their Formula One racing team. This one is not a big news for AMD, but it just kind of shows the different types of products or ways that AMD products are being used. So AMD EPYC processors are used to improve aerodynamic testing capacity. So they're being used to kind of do workloads in computational fluid dynamics. So this is pretty much they're running simulations to make sure that the vehicle that they're kind of creating or modeling has the best kind of aerodynamics, which overall should kind of reduce friction and improve the overall performance of the car. So again, not anything big. I think my favorite thing in AMD today was them expanding their footprints with Oracle Cloud, and also kind of introducing the new lineup of their 6000 series for laptops. Overall, I do believe AMD is looking very attractive. For me, this is a nice dollar cost average. So I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good night, and see you next time.